It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you.
Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to be talking on the show today with Eric Sue. Eric is the CEO of Single Grain and founder of Growth Everywhere. Eric, welcome to Accelerate.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Hey, my pleasure. So I may take a quick minute to introduce yourself, give people a little bit of information about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what you said. I have a marketing agency called Single Grain. I also have two podcasts, one called Marketing School, one called Growth Everywhere. That's where I interview a lot of entrepreneurs. We talk business, personal growth, and I have a couple other businesses as well. Our entire thesis is building great online businesses, based with the foundation of education first, which is a lot of the inbound stuff I imagine we're going to talk about a little bit. But at the same time, we do have, some of our own outbound methods too. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of who I am and what I do.
So where'd the name Single Grain come from? And what was the impetus to start the company?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not the original founder of the company. I took the company over about 3 years ago, but the original founder, he had to come up with a name, and he had a deadline, and he saw a box of cereal called Single Grain, and that's how the name came about.
It's smacks of the myth of how Apple came up with their name.
Yep.
At the last minute in the trademark office. Okay, perfect. So tell us just a little bit more about what Single Grain does.
Yep. So we work with technology companies, education companies. We help them with paid advertising. So anything like Facebook ads, Google AdWords, YouTube ads, and then also SEO as well. So typical digital marketing agency. And then the good thing about us is we eat our own dog food. The projects that we have, we implement our own strategies and it actually works. I think most traditional agencies don't really have their own projects to practice things on. We do. So that's the little unique spin we have.
Mm-hmm. So, and what sort of your mix of your business comes from business to business versus B2C?
Most of it is B2B.
Okay.
I'd say almost, 70-80% of it, I'd say, is B2B.
So what are you seeing in this environment that you work with your clients? It's sort of the single biggest challenge these B2B sellers are facing today.
I think it's generating conversions, whether it's generating leads, whether it's generating demos. They just have trouble doing it. Some people, they don't have, there's a host of things, right? A lot of people that come to us that we cannot help, they don't have a sales funnel built out. So I think for a lot of people that are listening, think about, having some kind of marketing / sales funnel built out where, people are, when you're selling something, you're not just trying to push them to a product page. I think people just kind of expect that. But, you're telling them some kind of, you're nurturing them through a sequence. So you might push them to a piece of content first, and then they might go to like a video or a case study they might download or a checklist. And then afterwards they might go and watch a webinar or some kind of, do some kind of demo. But it needs to make sense, right? You can't just, I'm sure you talked about on the show, you can't just ask people, to marry you on the first date. There has to be a sequence. So that's what it basically is.
Yeah, well, and later on, I want to get into sort of some more details about what that sequences are and help people to make sure understand sort of the pieces that they need to have in place at what time, sort of in their sales funnel. But one of the topics that's really still can create a lot of heated debate, if you will, is this idea of inbound versus outbound lead generation. And there are some people whose opinions I really respect, have been in the business for a long time, but they would tell you in the B2B space that, the only way you can predictably generate leads is through outbound, proactive outbound. And other people are just the opposite, 180 degrees. Is, you're crazy to do any sort of outbound. The only way you can really generate leads is these days, cost effectively, is through an effective inbound program. So what do you see in terms of what is really sort of the realistic mix that most of the companies you work with experience in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak from experience from our end. I think it's ridiculous that people think, it's one or the other. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Same thing with when I look at marketing, people are just, some people are just, specialize in SEO and SEO, that's everything, right? Or we're going to do paid advertising and that's all we know. And they kind of all clown on each other. It just doesn't make sense because if you have everything work together holistically, then you get even better results. So for us, we do a lot of inbound We generate our leads through inbound, and then we do have an outbound process as well. And it works well. And I'll tell you, like our inbound process, like, we're working with some the leads that we have coming in. We have a large airline company, that reach out, publicly traded. There's also a large ride sharing company that most of you probably know. And a lot of this is through inbound, or it's through people that see our content first. It's like, oh, we saw your podcast, or oh, we came to you through the content, and even the content that we produce, we push it on Facebook too. So you can consider that almost an element of outbound too. But we get people into the funnel. And they're I would say the people that listen to the podcast, for example, or read our content, they're a lot more qualified, and the sales cycle is a lot shorter. So I would argue that inbound does in fact work. A lot of people are like, oh, for large deal sizes, you have to do outbound. I do agree with that, but it doesn't mean you have to necessarily eliminate inbound.
Yeah, well, I think that especially now when you see the whole trend toward account-based marketing, is that that really is using inbound to a certain degree in an account basis. So yeah, it certainly see people integrating both in there. But you also, in one of the things I've read that you'd written, sound sort of a cautionary note about content marketing, is that problem being is that most of it out there is crap. And so how do you write and create effective content that captures people's attention?
Yeah, so what you can do is you can use a tool called BuzzSumo, and then look for the top content in your space. So let's say I'm writing content about content marketing, for example. I can just type that into BuzzSumo, and then I can look at the top content that's ranked out there. And there's a technique, if you Google, it's called skyscraper technique. And basically you're trying to 10x content whatever is ranking in the top 3 results for Google. And you're just ultimately trying to build out something that's much better. So for example, in the marketing space, there's so many people writing out there. It's very competitive, and it's hard to rank for stuff. But when you produce something with a unique spin on it, let's say you have unique data. If you look at like OkCupid, when they wrote about dating, they had all these unique data points, statistics, and very simple graphs for people to understand. And they generated a lot of links, they generated a lot of traffic because they had unique data and they had a unique spin on stuff. So especially in marketing, it can't just be an echo chamber. People are talking about the same thing over and over, or they could be, the content that they're writing is frankly not too much. It doesn't really add a lot of value. It's not in depth, right? So those are the things to consider. If you're going to write something, is it something that stands out? Are you putting a unique spin on it? And then if so, then you can easily reach out to other people and say, hey, I have this piece out here. Yes, it's a lot of manual work initially, but once you get the flywheel working, you're consistent for 2-3 years or so, things are going to start to take off. And just to give you an example, from a content marketing perspective, let's look at podcasts, right?
Sure.
My first podcast was, after 1 year, I was getting 9 downloads a day, okay, which is nothing. The next year, I was getting like 54 downloads a day, still nothing, okay. Then the next year after that, it was a couple hundred, but then and then you go into like this year, it's like, okay, at my high point, I'll reach about 10,000 downloads a day or so, and that's led into my other podcast, which gets about let's say 431,000 downloads a month. But it's all consistency. It's maintaining the quality and being consistent. Most people just aren't patient. Like a lot of salespeople, they just want to close things fast. That's why they say this stuff doesn't work. But the people that have the patience to actually sit through it and have the discipline, those are the people that are going to see success.
So getting back quickly though to the skyscraper technique, what was that specifically?
Yep. So there's this guy named Brian Dean. He is in the SEO space. He's also known as Backlinko. So if you just Google skyscraper technique, you're going to see his post talk about how you can basically outdo the results in Google and rank really high. Because if you have something that's genuinely good, you can just reach out to a ton of people that have linked to maybe the top 10 results or so and say, hey, I noticed you linked to this. I have an improved piece, and if it actually genuinely is better, perhaps 20, 30, 40% of people are going to link back to the newer resource because people want to add more value to their audience. They want to show something. They want to show them the most relevant or the best result. So that's something that's going to help you ultimately get more links. And what does that do? That's going to get you more organic traffic from Google, and then you're going to be able to generate more inbound leads.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to Google that. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It does work because here's the thing, If you literally Google the word marketing funnel right now in Google, like we didn't try really hard to promote that post, but if you Google it, I think we're, like I said, we're top 3 usually for that result. And it's because we have a really high domain authority, or a decently high domain authority, I should say. It's around 60. It's not really high, but what does that mean? That just means we have a lot. We've taken SEO into account, and we've had a lot of links coming to the site, and it just takes time to do it.
Got it. And there's been sort of I was going to digress for a second. Is there's certainly something I'd read over the last couple of years, and listening to people, is it seemed like there was sort of people start rolling their eyes when you talked about links. And what you're saying, it's still really important.
It is, and the thing with Google is they've done a really good job with their Google Penguin update. I think that they've scared everyone into not really thinking about links as much anymore, and so people kind of shied away from it, and they're focusing on just producing great content and then using perhaps like Facebook ads to promote it, which certainly works. We do that all the time, but link building is still a really important element. And I don't see it going away for a while. At least we're talking perhaps another 5 years or so. We don't know what's going to happen with search. Maybe it's all voice search in the future. I don't know. But as of now, we still links still have their worth.
Okay. Well, last question about content is content becoming less relevant to buyers? I mean, given the fact that they have so many sources they can go to, other than the seller themselves, to find out about the seller and the products that are out there and so on. I mean, user forums in places like G2 Crowd, peer-to-peer communications among their own networks.
Yep. I mean, so what's interesting? I mean, we just signed a new client, and then G2 Crowd and these review sites are very important to them, but their sales funnel is they want people to touch their blog first, and then perhaps get on a call, and then check out these review sites too, and then maybe send them like a white paper. So content still is very important because you're taking people through a buying decision. Hopefully you're retargeting people based on behaviors they've taken on your site. And then you're sending them to these pieces of content. So I think more increasingly, I think that the biggest thing anybody can do in this that's listening to this is to start building a brand. And content is a big portion of it, right? You build a brand, nobody can take that away from you. Yes, it's going to take a while to do, but again, it's very defensible.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that last question is I read a book called Absolute Value, What Really Influences Customers in the Age of Nearly Perfect Information. And these researchers, 2 guys out of Stanford, basically making the case that buyers, by and large, can circumvent the sellers almost entirely and still form a pretty, what they call nearly perfect view of the product and the experience of using the product without ever touching them. So that's why I was just wondering how content is still valuable in that sense.
I mean, if I look at like a G2 Crowd or something like that, and I've certainly used sites like these to evaluate products, and I can't make a final decision there. I do need to actually go to the site and look through things and send emails to these teams. And this is a lot of content involved, right? The stuff that the support team send me is they're sending me links to content. So I think I'm not sure I agree with that assessment from that book.
Right.
I don't think content's ever going to disappear because it's basically information to help you make an informed decision. And these G2 Crowd sites, they're certainly good. They certainly add an element to making the decision, but I don't think it's everything.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think it's everything either. I just thought and I don't think the authors were arguing that you would never talk to the seller, but that it becomes less important in the scheme of things. And they're, to your point about brands, one of their arguments is that actually brands in this environment, brands become less important because you have all these other, where trust used to be a huge part of the brand, the value of the brand. Now the trust within the brand is less because people are trusting other authorities to help them make their decision.
Could be. I mean, if you build like an indestructible brand or a very strong brand, let's look at Gary Vaynerchuk, for example. Sure. He's putting content out there all the time. He's got he's speaking at all these conferences. He's everywhere, right? That's something that's very strong. I don't think it's still that's something that's formidable to any of these sites out there. So if you can build your brand to the point of that level where you just keep focusing it on all the time, I think a lot of people just they really aren't considering brand right now. I think they're just it's an echo chamber. People are let's do this content marketing thing. Let's write 300 to 400 word blog posts. Let's do one per week for 3 months or so, and then we tried content marketing, it didn't work. I'm just gonna give up. I think it's a level of I think it's a level of laziness, and then it's that's what's going on right now. People they do a little work, and then they think they've truly tried it when they really haven't. I think it's just being lazy.
Well, I think you see that across everything, as you said. I mean, is before the example, it's about people on podcasts. The average number of podcasts that someone publishes, according to Libsyn, who's a big industry expert and hosting site for podcasts, is 7. The number is 7 of episodes that they produce before they quit.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
And I think it's the same with blogging and content creation for a lot of companies. As you said, is they make half-hearted efforts, and if they're not getting a ton of traffic generating off of the first few, or I don't get a ton of downloads, they just stop.
Right.
Yeah, you're never going to get anywhere if that's the case. So you had written an interesting piece about the 4 stages of a sales funnel. I just want to run through that quickly so people, as they start thinking and conceptualizing this, because it's different things you have to take into account. Excuse me. And the 4 stages you talk about is problem recognition. Second is information search. Third is evaluation of alternatives, and the fourth is the purchase decision. Is I like the one we just started digging a little bit to information search, is because you talk about how people can enter your funnel at that point. It's like, how do they find you? And I think a lot of companies that just aren't mindful about how customers and prospective customers are supposed to find them.
Right. So I'm not sure I'm understanding your question here.
Well, no, I just wanted to go through some of the techniques that people should be thinking about as the considerations. Is because got a lot of people that are still just at the beginning stages of sort of trying to think through how they do this.
Okay. So when you think about funnels, I'm going to keep it even simpler. So there's 2. So you have top of the funnel. That's the first one. Then you have middle of the funnel. That's the second one. And then third, you have bottom of the funnel. Okay. Now, when you are thinking about people that are top of the funnel, these are people that have never engaged with your brand before. They don't know who you are, okay? So top of the funnel might be because you're trying to indoctrinate them into your brand. Maybe it's something that's more, you're sending them to a blog post or a podcast or something where they can learn something, right? So for example, this how to create a marketing funnel post, that this is more, top of the funnel because people, it's more informational, right? People they're not looking for a specific brand. They just want to know kind of how to do this. So that's top of the funnel. You do how to create a marketing funnel, and they read that post. So that's what happens. And then what happens afterwards is, let's say you visit that post, and then I'm going to retarget you on Google and Facebook. Okay. So middle of the funnel content, these are people that have engaged.
Well, explain for people that are listening that don't understand retargeting. Explain what that means.
So retargeting means, those banners that are following you around after somebody has visited your site. So I'm saying you're not necessarily, you have a pixel on your site. You're able to collect that data on these people that have visited that post. Okay. So that's still, we're top of the funnel right now. Okay. Top of the funnel, they visit the how to create a marketing funnel post. Okay. That's the first one. Number 2, people that have engaged with your brand already, they're on your email list already. These are people that would be considered more, warmer traffic. You can consider these people these are middle of the funnel for you. Okay. So these are people that you might retarget from the initial blog post that was top of the funnel. These are people that you're going to retarget to perhaps something that is maybe like a checklist, maybe like a marketing funnel checklist, or maybe even a marketing funnel webinar, because they're a little more warmer to you, right? They know who you are. And they're going deeper and deeper into your funnel. So
just to make sure people listening understand, when you say you're retargeting to a webinar or something, that's going to be the call to action in the banner ad that's following them around.
Correct. And I'm just talking in the context of Facebook right now, okay, or even Google. So you are retargeting them to your webinar, or even if they're on your email list, you can just send them to that specific post. So that's middle of the funnel. Okay. So bottom of the funnel, these are people that are ready to make a decision, right? This is basically, you want to, this is where you want to throw up your offer or your product or your service. Okay. And this is where you can perhaps send them to, your product page, or you can send them to, set up a demo, whatever it is exactly. But these are people that have, they're ready to make a decision. They've got a lot of information already. They're armed with the facts. They've looked at reviews already. They looked at the G2 crowds out there. They've done the high level research at the top of the funnel. These are people that are ready to make a decision. And then you're going to create content around that. So the idea around these 3 is that you have people that are at different stages of the buying cycle: top, middle, and bottom. how are you going to create content for these people? You should sit with your content team, perhaps for an hour or two, and figure out what kind of content you want to create. It doesn't necessarily have to be webinars. You don't necessarily have to use ads. I'm just giving you examples there, but just figure out what makes sense. Based on how your audience is behaving with your content. Maybe blog post does the best for you. Okay, maybe it's pure webinars. I don't know, right? Your business is different, but you have to think about it that way. Otherwise, your funnel is going to be all over the place, and it doesn't logically make sense. If you ask somebody, "Oh, how to create a marketing funnel?" By the way, come sign up for our $10,000 service. Right? It's dating. It takes time to do it.
Right. So, a question about retargeting is, again, this is another one of these topics where read there's some sort of degree of controversy about how effective it is, or has been overused. I mean, what's your thought on that?
I mean, for retargeting, I mean, it's one of it's bread and butter when it comes to Google and Facebook ads. Twitter has the ability for retargeting too. LinkedIn has added that ability as well. But it's important for stuff like this, like what we just talked about. Being able to retarget people, send them content based on their behaviors on your site. Let's say they visited something on sales, for example. You're going to send them sales content, right? And then if they visited marketing content, you're going to send them marketing content. So you're not just throwing everyone into one bucket. It's better to treat people as individuals. They like messaging that is more tailored towards them. They're going to appreciate that. And your conversion rates are going to be higher because of that.
And what's your thought about sales pages? Again, this is another topic, at a certain point made toward bottom of the funnel, you land direct people to a sales page, with a big sales letter, content copy on it. What's your thought about how effective those are?
Yeah, super effective still. I mean, if you go to, there's a site called Swiped. So that's swiped.co, swiped.co. You can see a lot of great sales pages from great direct response marketers on there. They still work. There's a reason that people are still doing this stuff. I think to not have a sales page would be a mistake. I would understand how people. I mean, it would truly blow my mind if people are saying sales pages don't work nowadays. So
well, I did see that somewhere, and I was like, interesting. And I think part of the concern that they were saying is it was just too salesy, ironically.
I don't know. I mean, if you're at the bottom of the funnel, if you're not ready to ask for a sale, I don't know what you're doing in sales.
Right.
Well,
you'd be surprised. So, okay. And Eric, we're going to the last segment of the show here where I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests. And first one is a hypothetical scenario where you, Eric, have just been hired as VP of sales at a company whose sales have sort of stalled out, and they want to do a sales turnaround. So sort of testing your sales gene a little bit here is, so what two things could you do your first week on the job that have the biggest impact?
Yeah. So what I would do is I would take their email list. They have an email list, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take an email list, and then I would go to Facebook. I'll go to Facebook, and I'll make a custom audience there. Now, what kind of business is this?
Whatever you want to be.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Facebook. Depending on the business, it could be LinkedIn or whatever it is exactly. But I'm gonna go to Facebook, and then I'm going to make a custom audience, which is basically being able to target people on your email list. So I'm going to have a custom audience for the people that have already purchased. So my customers. I'm also going to have a custom audience for people that are on my email list but have not purchased. And then you can make lists for different areas too. Mm-hmm. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lookalike audience for these lists. So basically, Facebook can go out there and say, okay, based on your list of a couple thousand people, we're going to go find people that have very similar traits on Facebook. And so up to 2 million, starting at 2 million people, and it can range up to 25 million or so. Then from there, you have your audiences set up. I would first start retargeting people that are on your website, and I would also start retargeting your custom audiences with content. Okay. Hopefully you have content in place. I'm going to assume that you do, and then you can create basically a content retargeting funnel is what we call it. So again, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. What kind of content do you want to send these people? And you'd be amazed. I mean, we basically do the same thing with our agency right now, and we get incredible cost per acquisitions for generating leads. And This is something that you can take to your CEO and say, hey, look, this is the cost per acquisitions or CPAs that we're getting. I think we should invest more money into this. And then you can also work with your sales team to see if these leads are in fact qualified or not. But that would be a good starting point for somebody that is trying to jumpstart things.
Okay. Love it. Great answer. So some rapid fire questions then, just a few of them. First one is when you, Eric, are out selling single grain services, what's your most powerful sales attribute, you personally, when you're selling?
Wow. Okay. For me, I mean, it's all the work that I've done up front. Because I spend so much. I mean, literally, our podcast is a daily podcast, the marketing one. So, and then my other one, Growth Everywhere, that's a weekly one. So there's a lot of content there. And then we have, the speaking engagements that I do, and then we have podcasts like this one, and then the ads that we're running. So it's almost as if people are coming pre-sold when they're coming to us directly. And it's like I mentioned, I think earlier this week we closed a deal. It took me 1 week to do it, and these guys spend $300,000 to $400,000 a month. And it's because it's relationships. They know who I am already. Way easier to close that way. And I just have a conversation with them. My advantage is I know marketing. We just I talk from a consultative standpoint. I don't need to push any hard deadlines or anything like that. Usually, the deal's going to get done, and my conversion rates hover between anywhere from 60 to 80% or so.
Love it.
That it works.
Yeah. So what's one book you'd recommend that every business owner should read?
Yeah, it should be the Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Barish from HubSpot.
Yeah, we had 2 episodes with him earlier this year. Excellent. Okay, so last question for you. What music's on your playlist?
You know what? Let's see. So on my playlist, typically I listen to podcasts. So I have a lot of podcasts on my playlist.
Anyone in particular?
Let me stare at my list really quick. One the Andreessen Horowitz one. It's from venture capitalists.
Right.
That one's always good. And then there are some. Perpetual Traffic. That's a great marketing one if you want to get into Facebook advertising. Check out that one. And then let's see. Smart Passive Income is always a good one too.
Is that Pat Flynn?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great one. Excellent. Well, Eric, thanks for being on the show. Tell people how they can connect with you or find out more about Single Grain.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to singlegrain.com, and you can also find me on Twitter. That's at Eric. It's ERIC, O as in orange, S as in sugar, IU. It's at Eric Osu, and let me know if I can help with anything.
Great. Well, again, thanks for being on the show. And friends, thank you for joining us. Remember, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. An easy way to do that, join these conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Eric Su, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.